Welcome, everybody. Cosmos Joe here. Got a great video for you today. We're going to talk about Asteroid Protocol. This is the protocol that allowed for inscriptions on the Cosmos blockchain, the Cosmos Hub, using the Atom token. I'll have one of the contributors to Asteroid Protocol who was involved very early on with inscriptions and BRC20 tokens on Bitcoin. And we're going to talk about what this does for the Cosmos Hub, what are the limitations, and what it's going to look like down the road. Just please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a lot. And this is a sponsored video by the Atom Accelerator DAO. I'll link them down below if you're interested to see what they are all about. But for now, enjoy this video. So happy to have Redphone Crypto here. He's going to teach us all about Asteroid Protocol, which launched not that long ago, a few weeks ago on the Cosmos Hub. Why don't you briefly introduce yourself and then we'll get right into Asteroid.
Yeah. So I go by Redphone, mainly because I bought my first Bitcoin off a red telephone at a pharmacy back in 2013. One of those MoneyGram phones, and I've just been absolutely obsessed with crypto ever since. And today I work at Belfine Labs as they call me their narrator. So I do a lot of writing and just trying to get into the story behind crypto projects, because I think this industry is all about story and emotion and moving people.
Well, Delphi is very present in the Cosmos ecosystem. They contribute to a lot of different projects, it seems. Asteroid's really interesting, and people that are watching this channel know that I like everything happening with inscriptions on Bitcoin. Now we've got them on Cosmos. So we're going to learn all about that, what it means for the chain and the ecosystem itself. But first, like always, we'll start off with some simple yes or no questions. It could be yes, no, or none of the above, I guess. And then we'll get into the more deeper questions. So the first one, on the Cosmos Hub, do inscriptions work in a very similar way to how they work on Bitcoin?
Yes.
Okay. And are the fungible tokens actually on chain?
Yep, they are.
Okay. And does the presence of Asteroid as an app on Bitcoin, does it affect the speed of the Cosmos Hub? Does it affect block time at all?
No, it shouldn't.
Okay. Can these inscriptions be moved cross-chain like other tokens in Cosmos?
Not yet, but that's coming.
Oh, not yet. Okay, that's a good answer. All right. People will be interested to hear that. Can any chain technically have inscriptions, or is there something about Cosmos that made it ideal?
Yeah, any chain could definitely have it. I think Cosmos is ideal because it doesn't support smart contracts or any sort of advanced programming. So it's like a dream spot for inscriptions, I think.
Okay, that's interesting, actually. Oh, and then one question about the Roids token. Was that launched by the platform builders, or was that launched by a community member? That Roids token is like the first one.
Yeah, it was launched by the platform builders as a test or an experiment, very similar to Ordi and Bitcoin.
Okay, well, if it's very similar to Ordi, I know one or two people that were buying it as it like kind of had less attention on it, let's say the last couple of weeks, and they're happy that the price is rebounding. But anyway, you told me before we started recording you were heavily interested and involved in Bitcoin and the original development of BRC20s on Bitcoin. Why don't you go a little bit into that before we shift over to Cosmos?
Yeah, sure. So when Ordinals came out, I was just utterly obsessed. It rekindled my love for Bitcoin. I spun up a node. I was trading early inscriptions in Discord with a bunch of anonymous people and just using Google spreadsheets, and it was wild. And like during that time, I was thinking, I saw some cool experiments happening, like SATS names, which are kind of similar to ENS names and Ethereum, where you could get like redphone.eth people were doing things like redfin.btc on ordinals, and I thought, wow, like you can jam data onto the Bitcoin blockchain. Like, why can't you just use that to launch tokens as well? So I kind of did this tweet, and I had a like a really rough mock-up of how that might work, and I really was like nervous about sending the tweet. I thought the idea was kind of stupid because there were really some crazy elements to how the tokens work on Bitcoin. But I went ahead and sent it, and like within 2 days, I believe, this other anonymous guy had taken the idea, turned it into a spec, and launched 40. And it's just been a fascinating ride to watch that thing take off. And um, yeah, it's cool to have been there and seen it happen.
In the beginning, I was very, I would say, like, not savvy enough to use some of that raw tooling early on. So I didn't really get into BRC20s, but I was getting inscriptions, like a lot of the copycat collections from ETH I liked, and just to be part of like that early feeling into something. BRC20s have evolved into so many new token standards on Bitcoin. It'll be interesting to see if something similar happens to Cosmos. You said the hub is ideal because it doesn't have smart contracts. So does that mean other chains, they they weren't really in consideration? Because I would think someone like me who's just an end user, I have no tech background, I would assume you'd want to put something like this on Neutron because maybe there'll be a way to integrate it into DeFi. But you're saying Cosmos was ideal for inscriptions?
Yeah, yeah, I feel like it is because if you think about Bitcoin, Bitcoin doesn't support smart contracts.
Right.
So inscriptions or ordinals there like add functionality to Bitcoin without changing its security, without changing the way the core system works at all. So we're doing something very similar with Cosmos. We're bringing advanced functionality to it without changing its pre-existing functionality.
My next question is about the actual volume itself. On Bitcoin, inscriptions BRC20s were able to drive up the revenue for the miners. Right. This is a net positive, even though people at times are going to have to pay slightly higher transaction fees. Does the transaction volume of inscriptions on Cosmos benefit validators or relayers in any way, or is it just different because it's a different chain?
Yeah, it definitely does. And so before we launched, we were seeing maybe 2 to 3 transactions per block on Cosmos Hub. And right after we launched, especially during the frenzy, you were seeing as many as like 1,000 transactions per
Oh, yeah.
block.
I couldn't get mine
So
through.
yeah, it's amazing. So that every single one of those transactions is sending a small bit of revenue directly to the validators and their stakers. And yeah, that just wouldn't exist if asteroids weren't out there.
So it seems like one of the negatives of this horizontal scaling that Cosmos has experienced is you do have a lot of empty blocks, right? It's almost like you have all these like empty warehouses you know, across the ecosystem, but now on the hub, no smart contracts, there's a chance to fill blocks. And like to your point, this is going to end up with fees going to the validators. I think that's a good thing, especially as inflation comes down, right? A lot of people do believe the inflation should come down, and it can come down without missing a beat if inscriptions on Cosmos kind of take off and find some adoption. I think it will. I really do think it will.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of magical to me in a way because I think of like if you use the word cosmos, people automatically assume if they're not super plugged in that you're talking about Cosmos Hub. Like it's been
It
around
means a
for
lot of
5 years.
yeah.
Yeah, it's integrated with all the exchanges. It literally is the heart of Cosmos. And so you've got this community that can't do a lot with their token or with their coins. And I feel like this is changing the game for them. And it's bringing this functionality that the last 5 years has brought the crypto industry. It's bringing it to Cosmos Hub overnight. And yeah, I think it's a game changer for the whole ecosystem.
I agree. What about use cases of inscriptions? How do you envision them being used, let's say a year from now, 2 years from now, even? Whereas, like in the beginning, it's totally understandable that is like there's like a little bit of a craze, there's memes, and there's just like people having fun with it because it's so cheap to engage with. But it's not always going to be like that. Do you envision some progression, kind of like what's happening on Bitcoin?
Yeah, absolutely. When we designed Asteroid Protocol, we made sure to take advantage of what we were seeing on Bitcoin. And on Bitcoin, it's all about meta protocols. It's like when Ordinal was launched, the focus was all about JPEGs and just pushing images onto the blockchain. That all changed with BRC20s and with SAT names. And so now, like, Bitcoin is this flourishing ecosystem of protocols. That's exactly what we want to bring to Cosmos Hub. We want different token standards, different NFT standards. And we really want to focus on things like that you don't really typically associate with NFTs. So things like social and other aspects that can use these inscriptions in a really interesting way that kind of marries Web 2 and Web 3. Yeah, so we're excited about all the experiments, and that's what we want Asteroids to be. We want it to be this experimental hub for inscriptions that hopefully could like inspire changes on Bitcoin instead of us just copying Bitcoin.
What about limitations of either the asteroid protocol itself because it's on Cosmos or limitations of inscriptions in general?
Yeah, so I think about limitations a lot, and I probably think about them a little differently than most people. Like I think of them as very powerful tools to like standardize the industry. So like I almost look like at normal NFTs as being like they're great, but they're almost too powerful. Because people do so many vastly different things with them, they become unstandardized or harder to bundle and to do interesting like cross chain things with. So I think that inscriptions could have like a shot at becoming like synonymous with NFTs. Like they could become the primary format that people want their data to be in on blockchains. So I don't know. We'll see if it gets there, but they do require you to use a very specific format, and that format is very composable. So I think we're going to see these inscriptions like flowing across chains and maybe becoming far more important than people give them credit for. I think they could become overtake regular NFTs in some ways.
I was listening to the developer Rotomore on Bitcoin talk about how he views proof of stake DeFi tokens as completely unfair because of the way that they're created and that the teams allocate to themselves. He thinks that inscriptions and BRC20s and runes are much better because they're more fair at the launch. Do you think that this is definitely a positive that maybe will draw some smaller projects to minting their own tokens in a more fair way for their communities? Or do you think that's an inaccurate uh, assessment or maybe a false comparison?
So I do believe that's true, and for launch tokens, just build community unlike any other tokens. At least as long as they weren't botted or manipulated in any way. But there's a kind of a double-edged sword. If you do a completely fair launch, you have no treasury to fund marketing and to do like seed LP pools. So there's like pros and cons to it. I don't think one is necessarily better than the other, but I do think that a huge advantage that these fair launch tokens have is that they're not like securities, so they can end up on centralized exchanges. they don't have this overhead, this regulatory overhead that other tokens might have, which is a huge benefit.
So you're saying you don't think they're unregistered securities, or do you think they can't be viewed as unregistered securities just because of the way they're launched?
Yeah, I don't think they can be viewed. Like, I see no plausible argument that says they're securities when they're just a fair launch token that anyone could go mint, and no one person is like getting some huge benefit from the launch. So I really like how that happens.
So the fair mint is in contrast to the way a lot of DeFi tokens are issued, right? They're deliberately issued a certain way, and then some of it's available for sale, either ICO or airdrop or just put into a liquidity pool. So you think that's a huge difference in terms of uh, regulations?
Yeah, I think any token that launches fairly has a much easier chance of winding up on a centralized exchange someday. Yeah, if you do like an initial offering, it's hard to say that it's not a security because you're literally selling tokens to people and collecting money for it.
So you might be on. I didn't think of it that way, but I guess that would be attractive to some centralized exchanges to maybe list some of the really high volume tokens, similar to way Binance listed Ordi, and then another one I know they listed, and then obviously once it's listed on a centralized exchange, especially like a something like Binance where there's even some educational material there, people it gains adoption a lot further than if it stays in house on its blockchain, and that's it. What about the prospect of having smart contracts on the hub in the future? Would this be um, a net negative for Asteroid Protocol? No effect? Would it actually enhance and give some options for functionality? Have you not thought about it that far ahead? A lot of people still hell bent on smart contracts for the hub. Just curious what that would mean for Asteroid Protocol.
I haven't actually thought about that. Like I was saying earlier, like smart contracts, like give you a lot more capabilities and things that you can do with NFTs. So, on one hand, you could say that that would like destroy the use case for asteroids, but I think another huge aspect of asteroids is the usability. Like, I've been taking kind of as our North Star, like this idea that asteroids puts dev level skills into the hands of everyday people. Like, you used to have to be a dev to launch a token or to even launch an NFT collection. Um, we want to make that as easy as humanly possible. And I think that that will always have a place. But yeah, it would take a lot of, ideally, we would find ways to integrate smart contracts and asteroids so that you could do things like build an AMM with Roids token, for example, directly on Atom. So there would be some huge advantages there, that huge synergies that I think would be really cool to tap into.
But I guess with neutrons so close to the hub, that's an alternative as well. No.
Yeah, definitely. And we're actually already designing a bridge that we want to enable you to like take your CF220 Roids, send them to the bridge, and that would spit out Roids tokens and Neutron. But those Roids tokens would actually be what what Neutron or Cosmos calls token factory coins. So they would be like native tokens in Neutron, which means you could then put them into a DEX. You could use them in governance. You could stake them. You could do all the things that you're used to doing with tokens in the Cosmos.
I really appreciate you coming on, giving this info. I think that you guys knocked the UI out of the park, especially for new people that have never even bought an NFT before can easily navigate Asteroid Protocol. Someone like me, I was able to just make my own tokens in a couple of seconds, even though I was choosing to do it like the highest traffic time ever on the Cosmos Hub. It's really easy. I really haven't seen too many um, really, truly noob friendly websites and apps like this, but you guys did just a phenomenal job. So look forward to see what happens in the future and how people kind of how spin-offs occur from these different tokens, and what will happen for, the hub maybe being kind of a DeFi center without smart contracts. You never know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I think we've entered this new era for crypto, and I think it's giving all of us the abilities that used to require dev skills, and I think AI is just going to accelerate that. So anyone listening, anyone that's experimenting with this stuff, like, we're the future of the industry, and we don't need a computer science degree anymore. Just get out there and play with this stuff and build on it. And I think you'd be very surprised at what you can do and where it might lead.